All right. It's close enough to 4:30. It's like 4:29 with 30 seconds or something like that, so we can go ahead and get started. Hopefully everybody can hear and see. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So today we're going to do. I'm still writing the next phase of the pen test process videos. Last week we did some Recon, and I liked how that video kind of came out, and I got some good feedback on it. So I'm going to continue that series. The next video is going to be about exploitation and just kind of the different methods we can use for exploitation, some of the frameworks that are out there for exploitation, and how to do some manual exploitation. Probably not like diving into buffer overflows, at least not deeply, just because that's such a huge subject in and of itself. But, going over metasploit, going over, launching exploits manually that we find from like ExploitDB or similar other sources like that. Just kind of going over, the phase in general. So today we're going to be doing, since I'm not done writing that yet, we're going to be doing a hack the box walkthrough. And when I was looking through the machines recently, I haven't had a chance to do a lot of hack the box lately, just been so busy. But I was looking through the retired machines, and my internet decides to cooperate. And I saw SolidState. And oh my God, if you haven't done SolidState yet, this was one of my favorite boxes. I did it. I think I mentioned a little while ago that my wife just had surgery over the holiday, and so while we were in the recovery room, everything's okay, everything's good. She's recovering very well. But while we were in the recovery room, we were there for a couple days, and I was doing some hack the box while she was sleeping it off. SolidState was such an amazing box. It was super great. It's another one of those boxes similar to Blocky that I did a video for a little while ago. There's no metasploit required. It's a lot about enumeration and exploring the functionality of the box and the services that are running, and you can't just use an out of the box exploit. You have to get a little bit creative, and so yeah, we're just going to jump into it. But I'm not connected or anything yet, so we'll go ahead and start. This is going to be 1051 as the target IP. We'll go ahead and let's see. Let me remember how to do tmux. Jesus. So we'll go to CTF hack the box connection, and we'll go ahead and open VPN. Rook.ovpn. We'll go ahead and let that get spun up there. We'll go into the CTF hack the box, and we'll make their SolidState. So I did the SolidState on my laptop, and I haven't done SolidState since then. So while I know the path that we need, like the path to exploitation that we need, I'm kind of going by memory, and we might get some false starts, and we might go down some rabbit holes while I try and remember how everything goes. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just do a quick nmap of SolidState. So was it 10, 10, 10, 50, was it 51? I can remember things while I talk. Yeah, 51. And we're gonna make this and we'll do let's see, full port. All right, so we're doing an nmap. We're gonna do all 65535 ports. There's our target, and we're gonna output all formats to full port. So if you remember from the video last time, the different output formats are XML. There's a greppable output that it basically puts the results of each machine on its own line, so we can kind of grep through and be like, show me all of the machines that have TCP port 80 open, and so we can just grep for 80 and grep for open, and it'll just return all of the lines that show that. or we can grep for like up and 80 and stuff like that. And then the third one is just the regular nmap output. So what normally outputs to standard out will also be put into its own file. So the one output format that's not included is the LEET Haxor output that we explored a little bit yesterday, or I'm sorry, last week, but it just replaces like O's with zeros and stuff like that. Okay, so now that we've got our the ports here, we can also do an nmap, and we're going to specify our ports so we don't waste a lot of time, right? So we'll say 22, 25, 80, 110, 119, and 4555. And we're going to use the default ports. Minus capital A is all the default scripts. So we explored the NSEs, or the nmap scripting engine scripts, last week as well. Minus A is just a shortcut. Some of those scripts are marked as default, and this just says, you know, when we hit a service running on port 80 that matches some of the default scripts, go ahead and run those default scripts. So we'll do our normal target again, and then we'll OA, and we'll say targeted port. And remember, so this syntax here, this is just going to be the prefix, and then so this will be like dot xml dot gnmap dot nmap for the different files. So actually, if we set up another thing here, and we go CTF HTTP SolidState. So we can already see the different files that are being output here. So there's the gnmap, that's the greppable output. Here's the nmap, which is just the standard out stuff that we normally see. And then here's the XML for like importing to Metasploit if we want or whatever. So you'll notice I'm running a little bit of a bigger font size this time. I don't want to get too crazy because I still want our terminals to be usable. But somebody pointed out that, you know, not everybody can read the smaller font, and if we have some viewers with some visual impairments or something, we want to make it easier for them if we can. I would love to make it much bigger to help with that, but again, we need to make sure that the terminals are usable. So scroll up here a bit, and we can see the different the different script outputs. So, you know, normally we just get this kind of an output here. I'm pointing at my screen again. But, you know, it's like TCP, and it's guessing that it's SSH. We didn't do like, you know, aggressive service discovery or anything, but it's guessing that it's SSH because it's 22. It's guessing that it's SMTP because it's 25, etc. But when we run the scripts, we get some more information. So, you know, we're banner grabbing the SSH service. We're getting the host keys. For this one, we're banner grabbing like the SMTP server, and we're seeing something interesting. We're seeing James SMTPD, James POP3, James NNTPD, James remote admin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we also have a website. We're banner grabbing that it's running Apache as the server. You know, it's also getting the title of the web page. So we can check this out and just check out the web page a little bit. And 51. What? Oh, I don't have burp running. So as always, we use for the stream, we'll use, unless I'm showing off like the Burp Pro or, you know, some paid feature specifically, we'll always use the free tools so you can follow along. So this is just the Burp Free, and Burp Pro's down here. If you have the money, if you're a professional pen tester, you're a security professional, you know, have some extra cash, Burp Pro is actually not too expensive compared to a lot of the other security tools out there. For instance, like Cobalt Strike, that's like thousands of dollars. Burp Pro, I think, is, you know, $300 a year. And if you're anything like me, you blow that in a month on booze. So just don't drink for January. I hear a lot of people do this dry January thing, and you can pay for Burp. So anyways, Burp's up. We're going to turn off intercept. I'll go ahead and pop this up here. So SolidState security, this looks like some consulting firm maybe. Got a lot of experience. They got some consultants that are, you know, CREST and SAN certified. I don't know what OVSEC is, but maybe that's supposed to be OffSec for the OSCP. have some penetration testing, red team assessments, social engineering. So got a bunch of stuff. Got a little mail form here, which makes sense because we saw some mail services running on the back end. So you know, you can sign their guest book, as we would have called it back in the 90s, but you know, we can submit a form, you know, information request to them or something. So this is interesting. You know, let's take a look at some of this stuff. So if we connect to, like, remote admin seems like super interesting. So let's do NC 51 4555. It wants me to give it login ID, admin, password admin, login failed. Okay, so we don't have a login. Maybe at some point we can throw like Hydra at it or some form of brute force, but you know, online brute forcing, you know, where we have to wait for the service to spin up and back, that takes a long ass time. So, you know, I'm not a big fan of online brute forcing, and I wouldn't do it on an engagement unless I was asked to, or, you know, if it was, I didn't think there was any way, or it was a long-term engagement where I could throttle the number of guesses to, you know, like a few a second or something. And I don't do it on challenges unless I can't figure anything else out, because generally speaking, like, challenge writers don't want you to online brute force something. Agenda asks, what's my favorite drink? That fluctuates a lot. I was drinking Manhattans. I was just at a couple day offsite up in LA, so we were drinking Manhattans while we were there. Been drinking a lot of gin drinks lately, so like gin and tonic and gimlets and stuff like that. But gin, whiskey are like my two big alcohols, I guess. And then various cocktails made out of those. I'm not a big shots person. So anyway, so we've got let's see. So we've got an admin service running that we don't know how to log into. We've got POP3, SMTP. We have a website, but there's not a lot of stuff here. It's not a very dynamic website. So if we click this, it just goes to a services.html. It doesn't look like anything's really dynamic or being processed on the back end. Maybe we can get something to, you know, reflect back to us. So we'll call this foobar, send message, foo.com. It doesn't look like anything's being reflected back to us. We can check burp. So we posted, there's our post response. I don't really see anything being reflected back. We can search, you know, for like foo. There's footer, but yeah, it's just these two things. So none of our stuff is being reflected back. So probably not anything crazy available through the web server. So at this point, I'd start enumerating. I'd start doing some more recon, trying to figure out, you know, what is special about these. I've actually, until I did SolidState, I've never actually heard of James it looks like some kind of multi-service thing, like all-in-one hosting something. Like something's purpose built to have, like, you know, a website with email capabilities, you know, an NTP server. There's a Windows thing that I've heard of called XMMP or XMPP or something like that does something similar, where you can just spin up a bunch of services randomly and very quickly. So maybe that's one of those. So we can do some searching. We can do some searching, but maybe we'll do a preview of next week, and we'll use a thing that I've used in some of my videos before called Searchsploit. So Exploit DB online hosts just a ton of exploits, but when you do searches, you have to go through captchas and all this crap, and sometimes it's a pain in the ass. Well, Kali has Exploit DB mirrored locally, so you can go on to Git or something and mirror Exploit DB, but it's already on Kali. And apt-get upgrade, apt-get upgrade, however you use aptitude or apt. If you just do that, Searchsploit updates automatically through apt. So you don't even have to do anything funky just to keep it up to date. It's just always up to date. So we'll do Searchsploit for James. And it looks like we've got denial of service, which is less than useful for a challenge, but we've got remote code execution, which is interesting. And if you notice, the version here is 2.3.2, and when we logged in, we have 2.3.2. So that is looking promising. So let's see, Vincent Scarzy, sorry if I murdered that. If you can tell me if I pronounced it right or not, that'd be cool because I'd like to know. But Vincent asks, random question, have you ever used the Wi-Fi Pineapple? I actually have a Pineapple Nano that I have, and it's a neat bit of kit. I enjoy using it. It's fun. It's one of those things that you don't get a lot of opportunity to use, though, because Wi-Fi attacks in general, when you're doing something like a Pineapple, which can, which is generally, it can attack infrastructure and clients, but it's really, I feel, mostly meant for attacking clients. It's really a shotgun approach. When you pretend to be in an AP, you can blacklist, specific Macs to not join your AP and whitelist specific Macs to join your AP, but you can get in trouble. I often say when I do my videos to only do stuff with permission, and it's very difficult when doing when you're doing a Wi-Fi attack like a Pineapple, to explicitly only attack infrastructure and clients that you have permission to attack. So yes, I have one. I enjoy using it. It's a neat bit of kit. In fact, I remember when Hack5 first started playing around with it, and back then they called it a Yasserman, which stands for, it's German for yes man, was the first incarnation of the Pineapple, and then they packaged up the Yasserman into a plastic pineapple, and that's where that name comes from. But yeah, I've got one. It's neat. I like playing with it. They're not that expensive, and it's good for experimenting around the house for sure. So we're gonna get back here to the Apache James server. I think this is what we're going to want. So what I have done, just because of it, I'm me, I actually have set up a exploit shortcut in my root so that I don't have to type user share exploit DB platforms like every time. So if we look here, everything from here over is contained within this user share exploit DB platform. So instead of typing all that, I'm just going to do /sploit. Excuse me. We're gonna copy /sploit, and then I will copy that bit, and then we'll just copy that here, so we can take a look at the exploit. So if we take a look here, we've got this 35513.py. Let's take a look at 35513.py. Now, this is something we're going to go over next week as well. This is very important, A, when you're on an engagement, B, when you're doing capture the flag tournaments. Whenever you're doing something offensive, never, ever, and you'll see me do this on these videos too, so I need to get better about doing this, but never just download an exploit and run it. You need to know what it's doing, why it's doing it, how it's doing it, if it applies to you, if you need to modify it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you can't just assume that some off-the-shelf exploit from the internet will work. Will A, work, B, work the way you want, C, work without also giving someone else a backdoor, or not knock over the system you're trying to attack. And just because somebody asks you to hack their system, like on an engagement or something, doesn't mean they wanted it knocked over. Maybe they're using it. Maybe it's part of their dev environment. Maybe it's part of their test environment. Even if it's not in production, it could still be useful. They could still be using it. So you want to take a look at stuff. I've seen a lot of people, when I was doing SolidState, I was watching, I saw a lot of people just run this exploit against the box and without doing anything extra. And they obviously weren't getting the shell that they were expecting. So let's take a look at this first. Okay, so here's some author information. Of course, everybody that develops their own exploit should definitely get recognition because it's hard work. A little bit about it. Default installation of Apache James server. Example path that will automatically execute payload on some action. etc bash completion.d or etc pmconfig.d. Okay, so we've got a potential payload. So this is a command that's ran, I guess. Touch tempproof.txt. So if you're on an engagement, this is how you could prove that you were able to run a command on the server without getting, full shell or anything like that. Here's another command that's ran. If the user ID equals 0, or set user ID equals 0, usually in brackets this is a conditional. I would assume this is checking whether or not the user ID equals 0, which would be root. And then if it is, then you touch the rootproof.txt. So then you could prove that you were able to run stuff as root instead. So this is interesting. So we have credentials. I assume the default credentials for James remote admin tool is root. So we could definitely use that, even if this particular exploit doesn't work. We could use that to maybe root around in the file system. Excuse the pun. Or not in the file system, but in the remote admin tool. So here's some. If you don't supply your arguments, then it's going to tell you how to use it. So you want to target it with a specific IP. So, the local host if you want. So it's going to connect. It's going to connect to 45555, or excuse me, 4555. If the James service is running on a different port, then you'd want to modify this. And this is another reason that you need to read the exploit and see what it's doing. If there's something custom about the server, you can come in and modify it. So it connects to this socket. It receives 1024 bytes. And then it sends, and the 1024 bytes is just, it reads in some input from the server. Then it sends the user, which is set up here, right? User equals root, plus a new line. Then it receives another 1024 bytes. It sends password, which is root, and then a new line. Sudo man laughs. Yeah, examples incorrectly spelled. This happens a lot when you've got non-English speakers, or hell, I typo all the time. So even if they are native English speakers, you can get stuff like that. Not a lot of editor work being done on exploits. So then it creates a user. It adds the user bash completion.d exploit. Curious what that. It's adding. It adds a user to the James remote admin tool. I guess with this username and then the password of exploit. I guess we'll have to look at the syntax or the different commands in the remote admin tool and how those commands work. Then it connects to the SMTP server, and it sends an email to that user. It sends an email to that user. Okay. So it creates this user. I'm assuming it creates a user called this, and then with the password exploit. So then it sends an email to that user and then the payload in the body. It sends the payload in the body, and then once somebody logs in, the payload will be executed. Okay. Cool. So we've refreshed a little bit. So there's a few things to unpack here, like what this means, like what the ramifications are. So what this is saying is that once someone logs into the server, our payload will be ran. So just running this exploit isn't enough. We need an actual user to log in. Well, unless they script it up and hack the box, like users that'll just randomly log in and then log out, that's never going to happen unless we log in, right? The other thing to unpack is this. Here's the default username and password. So I don't think just running this exploit will be enough. Maybe we need to log into the server. So we're gonna NC 51 again, and we're gonna log into the remote admin tool. And this time we're gonna root. Cool. So that did work. So we've got the default credentials here. And if we see, we've got our add user, username and password. So we guessed correctly on that syntax. We can see if a user exists. We can delete users, set passwords, various things. Let's list the users. James, Thomas, John, Mindy, and male admin. Cool. So let's see. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna NC the pop3, so 10, 10, 10, 51, and we're gonna use the first port. How do I do this again? So let's see. Pop 3 command line. So this is some enumeration, right? We get a little bit of access to the server. So we don't get a full shell, but we get access to a remote admin tool. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to be able to log in as a user unless we set their password. So anyways, we get access to some sort of administrative tool, but we don't have like shell access, right? But what this does give us is the ability to log in to people's email, and there might be information in that email that we can get, right? So the whole process, and I briefly mentioned it last stream, is you do some recon, you gain some level of access. From that level of access, you enumerate until you find ways to escalate, privilege escalate. So privilege escalation doesn't just mean from an unprivileged user to root. We're talking from restricted shells to full shells, from not even shells. We're talking, you could log in and just have a restricted program, sort of like the time traveling train challenge in the 2016 Sans Holiday Hack Challenge, any of that stuff, and then upgrading that to a shell or a slightly more permissive utility. All of that is privilege escalation. So we'll do username and password, and then we can do our various commands here. Okay, and then we do username, password, or password. Okay. And these are the different things we can use. So we'll do this. We'll go root. We will set password James. So normally I wouldn't change passwords. You definitely don't do it like on an engagement unless you're given permission to do so. You wouldn't do it on, when you're trying to be stealthy either, because change passwords, like people notice that. I also normally wouldn't do it on a challenge like this because you're modifying the state of the challenge for other users that may be doing it at the same time. However, the way this challenge works is it requires the root login. We're going to be changing everyone's password so that we can log in and read their email. And if somebody else is doing a challenge at the same time, they're doing the same thing. As long as we don't change the root, if we don't go in and reset the root password, they should still be able to complete the challenge. Okay. So we're going to user James. Did we wait too long? Pass James. Yeah, we waited too long. Warzone is asking if we're using Kali in a VM. Yes, so this is on a Windows host using VMware Workstation. So this is my Windows desktop, and then just sitting here in the VMware Workstation full screen. So I'm gonna log in, user James. Do I need to use? Yeah, you know what? Maybe Telnet works. Like I've had problems with NC in the past. For POP specifically for some reason. Okay, and then pass. And if I recall correctly, when I was first solving this challenge, that was like an hour of trying to figure out why the hell I couldn't remember how to use POP. Okay, so from here, we're going to list. And James has nothing. So is it list users? Yep, list users. And then we'll set password Thomas. Can we just do like this? Nope. Oh my God. There we go. User Thomas, pass Thomas. We'll do a list, nothing for Thomas either. So we'll set pass John. Oop. Set password, right? John. There we go. Ooh, okay, so we've got a message. Retrieves the whole message. So RETR1. Okay, can you please restrict Mindy's access until she gets read in on the program? Also, make sure that you send her a temporary password to log into her accounts. Thanks. So it looks like it's from John to James, or from James to John. So what if we retrieve the 743 message? Oop. 743? Does that not work? Oh, maybe message 1. I don't know what that second... Oh, maybe that's how many bytes or something the message is. Seems low for the full bytes. Maybe it's just the body. I don't know. So we'll quit. We'll do set password Mindy. Mindy. We'll also set password mail admin. Also, if you do in an engagement, if you are resetting passwords because you got permission to do so and all of that stuff, don't set them to terrible passwords. The worst thing you can do as a pen tester or offensive engineer in any way is lower the security of your client or your customer from where they already were. And specifically, even if you have to temporarily lower it, if you got permission to do that, or you're like, hey, I want to try something, but it's going to lower your security, make sure that you set it back, and make sure that you make a note of it and that it's in your report, and that you set it back and your customer knows that it was set back, and they fix whatever holes and all of that stuff. Like the whole point is do no harm, and if you're lowering their security posture, then we're doing harm. Vincent's asking, sorry with all the off-topic questions, don't worry about it. All of these are on-topic questions, but how does Responder grab SMBs? What would the Windows user need to do for me to see the hash? It's not SMB specifically. It's LLMNR, I believe is the acronym that I'm forgetting. LLMNR. Yeah. So what it is what happens is the way I've seen it work is if DNS is misconfigured in some way, or LLMNR is set up to exist for whatever reason, usually in legacy environments or environments that used to be legacy environments but never got set up correctly after the fact, do a kind of broadcast connection or a broadcast to find hosts or find the host that it's looking for. So for instance, the most recent one that I remember is we had some Macs in our environment, like OS X machines in our environment. And so there was some change that happened on our network that caused them not to be able to access the AD's DNS server, and it started using this multicast DNS to find stuff. And so the pen testers with Responder were able to see those broadcast messages and grab the hashes out of it. So it's specifically this LLMNR. I would look that up and do some reading. Pseudo Man says that he's going to start saying offensive engineer. So my department at my office is offensive security. I'm the manager of offensive security, and we actually call our engineers researchers instead of engineers, because I feel like we do more research work than engineering specifically. But I've seen offensive security engineer, I've seen offensive security researchers, offensive all kinds of stuff. It makes other people giggle because they're like, you sure are offensive. But other than that, I think it's pretty accurate. So anyways, let's so we can use user, and we reset Mindy. So we'll go ahead and log into Mindy. And we'll list, and we'll retrieve 1. Welcome to SolidState Security Cyber Team, junior role, enclosed information, blah, blah, blah. Cool. Neat. So if we can retrieve 2. Okay, so now we have a login and password. So if we hopefully should be able to 10.10.10.51. Oops, not as root though, right? Root, not as root. I'm good at this game. As Mindy. And yes, we want to log in, and we'll go ahead and paste the password that we got. Oh, you bastard. That's funny. So IPSec, my good friend Nick Ivellito, I'm sure you've watched his videos. He's he knew that I was streaming this, so he set a message of the day to when I logged in. So that's good. He's a mod at Hack the Box. He does a lot of Hack the Box videos. Super talented guy. Exceptional hacker. Great friend. That's outstanding. I need to hold on. I need to screenshot this. This is great. I'm like grinning from ear to ear right now. This makes me happy. Just forgive me a second while I tweet this shit out. Oh, Nick. Hey Nick, what's going on, man? It's good to see you. That's funny. That was good. That made me happy, man. That was cool. So this is where my memory gets a little hazy on this box. So I know that I spent some time trying to escape from the restricted shell, if I remember correctly. So if we can cat the user.txt, which we're not going to, but you can. And if we do like a sudo, it's going to say, it's not found because we're using rbash, right? Whoop. Damn it, Nick, stop it. So potty fake, to join Hack the Box, you have to pass the registration challenge. So if you go, I forget how it's done. Bring over so if you click join, you've got there's a registration thing that you have to figure out. You basically have to hack yourself a registration code. So this is where it starts at hackthebox.eu/invite. I have not and will not do a walkthrough for the invite code because it's part of the live CTF. And frankly, it's a good warm up to the challenges to Hack the Box. So I feel like you'd really only be cheating yourself to get the answer to that. But here's where you start, and I wish you the best of luck on registering because it's a good time, and Hack the Box is a great community, as you can see. Okay, so we're in rbash. We're in a restricted bash environment. So if we take a look at bin, we can see that we're allowed to use cat, env, and ls. So this is where we kind of deviate from just a straight walkthrough because it's actually been a while since I've done this. I remember working on trying to escape the restricted bash, but I can't remember if that was the path or now that we have the ability to log in, if running the exploit will work. So what we're going to start with is trying to run the exploit. So if we look at the exploit again, what happens is we have a payload here, and this should get ran when somebody logs in. Well, now we have login capability. Give me 1 sec. Okay, so I'm terrible at timing. I bought a couch earlier today, and evidently the time that's being delivered in the next 10 minutes. So I'm gonna try and do a little bit more here, and then we'll take a 10-minute break, and then I'll come back after they drop it off and put it in the house. So let's see here. So we've got this payload here. Trying to think. So if we modify this payload and then log in with our credentials, maybe that'll work. So vi 35513. Do we have NC? We do have NC. Oh, and we have NC traditional. Good. So we'll just bin NC dot traditional bin bash. And we're, nope, ton 0. And C LP 9090. And we'll Python crap. I need to so I'm not sure if this will work. Ah, it did work. Okay, cool. So then so Python C 1010, or I'm sorry, import pty dot spawn bin bash, and then sudo l. Oh, sudo command not found. Okay, so which works? Okay, we're gonna have to take a break because I gotta receive my couch. I'm gonna put on the taking a break screen, and I'll be back hopefully in 10-ish minutes.